Hi there, this is Robin Andrews from Compucademy, and today I want to share a short video about Sqlite, which is a lightweight database management system that you might well want to use when you're learning Python. What I have here is some SQL code, and what it does is it creates a table in a database called cards, and it inserts data into the table, which represents a deck of playing cards. This code at the top actually creates the table, and you'll see that I've got 5 fields and they have some other information that goes with them. So the table is called cards. Then I have a field called ID, and I'll talk about this stuff here in a moment. I have another field called name, another one called suit, one called suit symbol, and one called score. Okay. Now if you look at the actual data, you can see that I'm inserting 4 pieces of data for each card. I'm inserting the name of the card, such as ace or 2 or 3, etc. The suit of the card, a symbol for the suit, which might be useful later on when we want to represent our card, and a score for the card, which also might be useful when we're playing games, for example, where we have to keep score of our hand. So the data types for these fields are as follows. ID is an integer. Hopefully you know by now what an integer is. It means a whole number. And we set this to auto increment. Now what this means is the database will automatically assign a value for this column when you enter the data. So you'll see in my actual data I've not given it a value for the ID. I've only given it values for name, suit, suit symbol, and score. And the ID will actually be created automatically. So that's how that works. You should also notice that there's a primary key here, which is very important. We'll talk about those later on. Okay. The data types for the other fields are text, text, and text for the name, the suit, and the suit symbol, because they're all basically strings. As you can see, they have quotations around them. Okay, and then again we have integer for the score, because that's a number. That's a whole number that we might use later on. And then we do the actual insertion. So this is how this statement works. You'll see insert into cards. That's the name of the table that we've created. And then the fields that we want to insert into, name, suit, suit symbol, and score. And then the values which we provide here. Okay, so you're going to need to spend some time writing your own statements to get comfortable with the syntax, but this is a good starting point, a good example of how the basics work. Okay, next we're going to import that SQL into a program called DB Browser for SQLite, which you're going to need to download and install on your system. Okay, so then we're going to File, we're going to import database from an SQL file, and I've called it cards SQL. So now I open that up, and what I have to do now is I have to actually give a name for my database. So I'm going to call it cards. Perhaps not the best choice of name because that's the name of the table as well, but it doesn't actually matter in this instance. And I can call it .db. If I didn't add the db, it would be added automatically anyway. So that's your choice whether you add that yourself. Okay. And my SQL has been imported, and I now have access to those values. So if I want to browse my data, you can see here the ID field, which I mentioned earlier, has indeed been created. They have indeed been auto-incremented, so you can see we have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I didn't need to add those myself. That was done automatically. And actually, SQLite, you don't technically need an ID field because you have this row identifier as well. But just to keep things a little bit similar to other database management systems, such as MySQL, I think it's a good idea that we actually do explicitly define an ID field. So just go with that for now. Don't worry if you know a bit more about SQLite and the difference between SQLite and MySQL, then feel free to adapt things to suit your knowledge level. But I'm assuming that I'm basically working with beginners here, okay? So then we have the name. This is text, string, basically. And then, like I said, string, or text is what they call it in the database. And another integer value here for the score. And you'll see these values repeat. The ace is worth 1, 2, the 2 is worth 2, etc., etc. Yeah. And that's basically how it works. So obviously it's a big topic. It's not something you're going to learn overnight. You're going to need to spend some time writing queries, playing around with database software. Lots of different things you're going to have to do to get comfortable and familiar with databases. But SQLite is a really good way to go. And I'll make this code available for you somewhere. And I'll put a link in the description. So it would be a great idea actually to type this in yourself, even though it's a little bit fiddly. It will certainly get you used to some of the shortcuts that your editor might have. For example, I did a lot of find and replace using Notepad++. Once I'd created one block here, I just pasted it and then did a find and replace on the spades, replaced it to hearts, did the same with the symbol, etc. So that's a basic introduction to SQLite, building a table containing playing cards, using some basic queries and learning about some basic data types, including the auto increment function for the field that we've called ID. And the fact this is a primary key, we didn't go into much detail, but just bear in mind every table needs to have a way of uniquely identifying each record within it, okay? And that's why we need to allocate a primary key. So that's it for now. Hopefully you enjoyed this short video on SQLite, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Goodbye for now, and thanks for watching.